It's Friday, June 4th, and you're listening to The Drive. How you doing, Catherine?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Daryl? How's life?
Life is busy as all can be. As I was sharing with you before we went live here, but just for the benefit of the audience, I'm about to cross an international border a week today. I'm going to go from Canada to the U.S. to attend the Outbound Conference. And for those who are regular listeners of The Drive, you've heard us talking about the Outbound Conference and strongly encourage you to attend it. So I'm geared up. I'm excited. I'm anxious because, travel is still scary, at least in my mind. So we shall see. But I think I've got all the paperwork I need to do. It's been a horror story to get it. And for all my American listeners, you are so lucky to be able to travel within your own country, and not have to worry about crossing international borders. It's a whole other kettle of fish. So, bless your stars for that. There we go. But that's me. That's what I'm doing, which means I should mention, because of that, for the next 2 episodes of The Drive, Catherine, I won't be here because I'll be there. And actually, at this point in time, I'll just be in the process of landing. So that's how exciting it is. So maybe we could do a live event from the airplane. The flight attendants might not be happy with me. I'll have my mask on. I'll sound all muffled. But I know, exciting time. So, Catherine, you're going to have a yet to be revealed co-host for the next 2 weeks. So you will actually probably enjoy the show for the next 2 weeks.
No comment.
No comment. Well done. Well played. There we go.
No, here's what I'm going to say, though. I want the 3rd show then from today, right? So after your 2 weeks unavailable.
Yes.
I really want us to focus on your feelings and your FOMO, because I bet it's going to kill you not being able to be part of this amazing show for 2 Fridays in a row.
I'm bitter. I will be watching it on demand, and I will then send lots of comments and critique the production.
Better.
And of course, if I don't like something, it won't be your fault, Catherine, because we know you're awesome. And if you do something that perhaps I think is less than optimal, it's on Daniel, our producer. I mean, that's his job, right? And if he can't get it right, then he sucks. So there we go. All right. Speaking of Outbound, this is my last personal plug for it. But of course, Catherine will remind you next week that it's taking place at the Georgia World Congress Center. That's right. Live and in person. It's happening, folks. It's back. And that's June 15th to 18th. Or you can do this all online. I know Catherine's entire team is going to be actively involved in participating. And that's June 13th to 18th. So check that out. That's the Sunday to the Friday or the Saturday. So it's a lot of content, let me tell you. And it's like all around the clock, because when it's not happening in North America, you get the folks from Australia picking up the baton and going with it. So, I mean, it's like great, outbound television nonstop if you want to watch it. So check that out, outboundconference.com. You can use the code VanillaSoft 100 to save yourself some money. So there you go. That's what you need to know. That's that. I also want to let you know, kind of a heads up, that June 8th, there's a really killer webinar we're doing with Jason Bay and our good friend Ollie. You know Ollie, of course, from his rants, and it's all about increasing your cold email reply rates. Cold email, right? So you're just going out of the blue. They don't know who the heck you are. What do you need to do to increase those reply rates? So check that out. You can just go to autoclose.com. Autoclose with a K, because K is just cool. I know. I'm sounding like an old man. But there you have it. Check that out. Finally, just a big shout out as usual to the Sales Experts channel, because that's the place you need to go to find all the industry's brightest, most talented sales experts. This show brought to you compliments of the Sales Experts channel. We love them. Check them out. Hosted by Bright Talk, their #1 channel, by the way. It's massive. All right. First up, We're going to get into money, Catherine. And oh my goodness, what a week it has been. So let's just see if we can go through this tickety-boo. First up, and it's the same list of categories and vendors, it seems. Outreach. Outreach has raised an additional $200 million. $200 million. 200, did I say that enough? $200 million. $200 million. Did I say it enough? And that brings their valuation up to $4.4 billion. And they're closing in on having raised darn close to a grand total of $500 million, or said another way, close to $500 million with a B dollars. As you might imagine, the net result of this is that they're hiring. So you're looking for a job. There you go. So this is their, okay, I'm not making this up. Rarely will you ever hear this. This is their Series G, as in goodness me, Series G. All right, Catherine, I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm super happy for them. Like Daryl being able to, get investment in such way. It's always good, right? It's always nice to see. That's what you would always hear me say, and it really comes from the bottom of my heart. I love seeing companies just be successful. I love seeing that they are able to accomplish what they, have planned and are able just to grow. At the end of the day, we should just look at the economy and look at the market as complementaries. And so it is working for them. It's great stuff. Keep on amplifying the message. They do have amazing solutions. We need to own that as well. They've been surrounded by really, thought and knowledgeable folks that are helping them, I guess, just pave or start working towards paving that way ahead of them, right? Many new solutions have recently come out. And I told you that earlier when we were talking about it. These guys have focused on the value of those partnerships. So they go and start talking, to these thought leader about that is focused on outreach and cold emails. And so now they start working on a solution internally that will actually help reps with the cold email writing. So it's a lot less on, hey, we have here the platform, but now we have these other artificial intelligence development that will actually walk you through walking it. And it's all based on the knowledge that this other person keeps on sharing when she's building her presence and her own business. So it is working. It's great. Super curious. And you and I, we agree on the same. It's curious to see what they're coming up next with and how they're going to keep up, because it also gets to a point that it's hard to just keep up.
So here's my take on outreach and their funding. First off, congrats to them with all genuine sincerity. What outreach is doing a great job, and it benefits companies like VanillaSoft and SalesLoft, is this constant fundraising, Series G, and increased valuations every single time, does a fantastic job of highlighting the impact that sales engagement does and draws customers to the category. They're helping define and validate the category, the need. Like you had CRM, you had marketing automation, now you have sales engagement. And that was actually one of the reasons I came to VanillaSoft, because I could see this is going to be the next hot space. So that's awesome. Now, we need to understand, though, is despite all this good news, outreach is not going to be fit for everybody. Where they tend to play is primarily medium to enterprise accounts, and mostly in high tech. So, and there's a certain price point, right? So that price point may or may be for you. That may be a good fit for you. But I would suggest that anybody evaluate which choice is right for you. For example, I'll use a CRM as an example. Many people use Salesforce.com, but you want to go kind of one step down, a little less money. They'll use HubSpot. HubSpot's doing ballers in CRM, right? And that was something that they developed after the fact. They began as marketing automation. So, But then you want to go one step down, then you'd use Pipedrive. And they're doing ballers, and they're more of a Salesforce automation as opposed to CRM play. But my point is all three companies are doing really well, but Salesforce.com validates the category. And that's what creates the competition. Outreach is doing the same thing. So like anything else, folks, if you're looking for a sales engagement platform, the usual vendors you want to look at would be Salesloft, Outreach, VanillaSoft. Those are the three incumbents. And they do have different strengths and weaknesses, so buyer beware. It's the $500 million I'm struggling with, Catherine, and with all sincerity. If you do the math on their earnings versus how much their valuation is at, their multiple is through the roof. Like, it's incomprehensible. There's no way a venture capital would give valuations at those multiples. So that says to me, there's a bigger play here. There's something going on. Personally, I suspect there's a play where they're going to go for the big IPO and they're trying to drive valuations up. And by raising money, they're just going to drive the valuations up to another $4.4 billion. But I don't know. But you've seen the same thing with the way they've stacked their executive team, the who's who of everybody from all the major players in the industry. So the combination of valuations and leadership, I suspect there's a big IPO in the marketplace. And that means there's only going to be a handful of true winners. But that's just me. I'm not a fortune teller. Who knows? But there's something more at play. Because the second thing here is, what are they going to do with all this money? This is not a little bit of money now that they've raised. There's hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars in a bank. So it's not like they need the money in any near future, but they went and raised them the $200 million. So that's interesting. Do they really need the money, or is this a vehicle to drive valuations for the big IPO? Because that's how they're playing it. And hey, I don't begrudge them that, but looking at it logically, there's more to the story than we're seeing. Time will tell. We'll follow the outreach story, but congrats to them. All right, next up, where do you want to go in this one? Next one up is Salesforce, Catherine. And so not so much they haven't raised money, but a wonderful post that was shared recently was Benioff shared actually a tweet, I think it was, where their Salesforce growth basically had grown a stunning 23% at $24 billion in annual recurring revenue. All right. So you look at in 2014, they were 4.1 billion. In 2018, they were 10.5 billion. In 2021, they were 21.2 billion. And in 2022, their guidance is they'll be at $26 billion. So that's not insignificant. And what's really interesting about this is a lot of their money is coming from a lot of their acquisitions. So CRM, the core product, remains their slowest growing product, only growing at 11%. So that tells you something. But then one of the things I found really interesting was their cash flow is like through the roof. They're like at 74% to $3.2 billion in cash flow. That's massive. And the other thing I found really interesting was that most of their $1 million plus annual contract values, so that means, that you as a customer of Salesforce are going to give them $1 million or more a year, includes 4 or more of their cloud products. So you can really see the whole ecosystem they've built out over time from their roots as a Salesforce automation vendor, which is kind of what Pipedrive is today, has been a big part of it. Tableau was part of 8 of their top 10 deals. Tableau, a huge reporting tool. MuleSoft is part of 5 of their top 10 deals. So you're seeing them doing a great job of selling the vision. It's almost ERP-esque. And you're seeing them, kind of displace Oracle, for example, or SAP in many places. So, Catherine, I'm not sure where you're going to go with this one, but what's your reaction when I share some of that with you?
Not surprised. Like, Salesforce is just such a monster.
You're not surprised.
Like, nothing. And of course, you and I, we're so different, right? We always have a different take at all these topics. And I think I kind of enjoy that at the same time, right? And for you, obviously, you're focused on, the numbers and the acquisitions and how the business is actually doing. And for me as well is the fact that Salesforce is not only focusing on revenue, But in just really, which is what I really like about Benny, is that he really talks about their culture and make it people want to work with them because they believe in what they say. Right. So it is a whole different approach. So right now they are working super strong in supporting the mental health awareness as a whole commitment to society. Right. So they are trying to leverage and build on spaces that will enable for those comments. I've heard that internally they provide to their teams, their people, so much support and so many programs to really help them go through challenging times, right? So it's not only about talking on, hey, yeah, oh yeah, we're here, we're super inclusive, we're diverse, we are all in for mental health. No, they actually do a lot of that internally. So again, their culture is not only being experienced by their people, but their customers and the market. And that just makes that everyone wants to work with them. And of course, all of their products are just going to be successful eventually.
They have truly done a great job building that company. I remember when they first launched. And the whole idea of SaaS was versus traditional sales at that point in time was on-prem.
Yeah.
Probably saw you'd pay like $1 million up front, and then 15% maintenance, every single year. And they came in with this low-cost alternative, which of course they quickly learned from Oracle and others, and that low-cost alternative became a high-cost alternative. Give them credit. They've watched from those who've gone before them, but I think that their differentiator is two things. They've continued to innovate. They're not afraid of acquisitions at all. Yep. And they do a good job of incorporating those acquisitions as opposed to simply just milking the base for their maintenance revenues. The other part is they've built a culture, and you alluded to that, right? And Benioff has been on the forefront with philanthropy, with the 1% rule and everything else. Like he has established a culture that makes people loyal, employees loyal, and it also makes customers stick with them time and time again, job after job. So, my goodness, there is nothing but compliments to them on what they've done. So congrats to them. It's good to see them continuing to be successful. Personally, I'm still shocked Benioff's still in the picture. I would have retired a long time ago. So, but, that's just me. All right, next up. If you thought Outreach was wow, and Salesforce was holy smokes. Wait till this one, Catherine. Gong has done their Series E, not F, not G. E like Edward, E like Ellie, E. And they didn't raise $200 million like Outreach. No. They raised $250 million. And they're not valued at 4.4. No. They're valued at $7.25 billion. So their total funding to date, we talked about Outreach almost being close to $500 million. That's nothing. It only took them 5 rounds, not 7 rounds, and their actual funding is almost $600 million at $584 million. Catherine, they've raised almost $600 million. So I remember Amit Bendov, the CEO, not too long ago, being a one-man show at the AAISP event in Chicago, manning his booth. And now his company is worth over $7 billion, which is nearly 3 times the company's valuation in their last round. So I got to ask you this question, Catherine. I don't personally think conversational intelligence long-term is a standalone app. I think a Salesforce or somebody else will incorporate this into their product suite. Do you see them going the long run, the long haul, or do you, because clearly this investment implies that they can keep on doing this, or do you see this, do you see an acquisition in their future? Do you see them being acquired?
That's a really good question. I mean, obviously they have everything. I believe that they have the structure to really go in the long run on their own farther. The premise behind it is always hey, you want to be coaching your people. You want to make sure that you're there for them, all that stuff, right? So it ties back again in terms of that people's first, making sure that you really understand where they're struggling or where they are being successful so that you can help them be successful all the time, and having data right there at a quick, I guess, pace or just quickly. So they could potentially go, and they are ready. So it looks like they are already working towards that integration, right? Like how to make it a smooth flow of data, information, keep it all in one place. I don't know, because it's hard really with these companies to tell if their final goal is to just exit or keep it.
That's true. Maybe they're going to become the acquirer. That's what I think is going to happen. They're going to follow the Salesforce model and become the acquirer. Remember what Salesforce is? Yeah, their big deal is for cloud products and their $1 million plus annual contract values. So I suspect you're going to see, almost $600 million being raised. I bet you they go on an acquisition spree. That's my prediction. All right, here we go. Folks, we're going to move into corporate affairs. And we're going to pick up the pace here. Next up, Catherine, this one should be, I wanted to get your feedback on this one particularly. People AI. For those who don't know who People AI is, they are the revenue operations and intelligence platform. So, you have sales, you have marketing, and you have RevOps, right? Which is kind of that third wheel, if you will, in the whole revenue machine, the revenue organization. Well, guess what they've done? They've acquired Hero Research, and it's specifically a Salesforce user productivity app that redefines the experience for sales reps with a Google Sheets style interface for pipeline management and effortless CRM updates. So I get the acquisition. It actually makes a lot of sense for what they do. But Catherine, we were just talking about Dooley AI. Was it last week? And the money they raised for a simple user interface to sit on top of Salesforce.com. And boom, we see Hero Research being acquired for somewhat the same thing. And I go back to you saying what I said last time we talked about Dooley. Does Salesforce eventually just say, we're just going to put a layer on top of here and displace Dooley and Hero Research because apparently you guys don't like our data entry, so we'll fix it. And then that makes them irrelevant. Good acquisition, bad acquisition, thoughts?
It's always good acquisition when you're trying to really have a full package to make people more effective and efficient in their job, right? It's always a good combination because it'll just position yourself as a solution rather than just one link. So now you are building on that full package. Same as when we were talking about Dooley. Yes, Salesforce is awesome. It's a huge monster. So no one wants to remove their people from selling and having actual activities that will generate revenue in order to be able to update their notes, right? But we all know the importance of data. So all these layers, all these interfaces are allowing folks to just, at the same time that they are absorbing the information and gathering the data, uploading the system. And so it's a nice, connection. It gives visibility to the business. It increases on that accountability, ownership, and happiness at work, right? Like not having to spend time saying from 4 to 5 every day, I'm going to sit down to update the CRM, right? It's a draining activity on the day. So it is awesome that this is happening. I still don't see, to the point that we were just talking, Salesforce creating their own solution. I see them maybe taking advantage of all these, developments, and Dooley specifically, for example, would just become kind of a partner and potential acquisition rather than spending time, effort in trying to develop something that will deliver the same value at the end of the day.
It's an interest. You're not wrong. That's a very valid point. That's the whole point of their app exchange, to fill up their holes. Their partner ecosystem is strong. All right. Big Tin Can, they're a sales enablement platform. They have rolled out what they call an engagement hub, which is basically the ability. I love some of the terminology these marketers use that allows, it's enhanced personalization so that content can be consumed in a non-linear way. So what does that mean? That means instead of going content piece A, then B, then C, then D, that's linear. You can bop around from content to content piece randomly and ad hoc and whatever inspires you. Kind of like how you surf the web. But what I do like about the premise here is that sellers, so your sales rep, get the ability to create and deliver custom content via a microsite. So imagine you do discovery and you find out they got 3 or 4 different panes, and we know there's an economic buying influencer, and there's an operational user, and then there's an actual champion. You can make microsites specific to each individual, or just one big microsite that caters to those 3 people for those 4 issues that they face. And then they could share that page, of course, internally, and you can track and monitor it. So that allows sales reps to personalize the content and track which content is being viewed and then analyze the engagement. So conceptually, I like this, but I'm not sure this is going to drive more revenue for them. I mean, is this going to drive more content consumption? Maybe. But I think today most content is consumed via email. Here, George, here's a paper we talked about. What do you think, Catherine? Are you going to have more success if you had a microsite versus just sharing that content via an email as an attachment?
For corporate, it'll work perfectly. For enterprise, that's what they want, right? Hey, you're creating a microsite just for me. Right. It's amazing. And guess what? Now I'm looking at stuff that it's relevant to me, right? So it is just kind of boosting in terms of in that market where these folks are way too busy, they can just go back into one place and access all the relevant information that will help them either make a decision or just feel confident with the decision that they just made, whatever the purpose is, right? Of the information that you're sharing at that point. So they don't need to scroll in their inbox and say like, you know what? Daryl sent me these. I remember Daryl sent me these one day, and it's actually something that I really need right now for my meeting or to talk to my end client or whatever it could be. Now they just go into there and they look cool because it's personalized, it's for them, and everything is in one place. I'm super fan of that, less effort, more outcome type of situation, and this is one of those. We are making their lives easier to just again access relevant information, and they can absorb it at their pace in their moment. So I really like it, but it depends on the market size. I don't see that working for smaller companies.
We're going to, we talked about Gong. Let's give Chorus AI quick little shout here, but we can't go deep because we're tight in time here. And Daniel would yell at me because he yells at me nonstop anyway. But they launched this new suite, this new product on their core platform called Momentum. We're Chorus users ourselves. We rolled out Momentum, I think, yesterday. So it's a pretty sweet app, folks. I got to tell you that one. Basically, it aggregates and analyzes all the emails, calls, and video meetings and call-outs, basically, as they describe them, key moments across the relationship history. So you can visually see the actual relationship, how it's progressed, how they've engaged, which is, you basically said another way, you're seeing the whole buyer's journey and what's working for you and what's not. So as Ollie like to say it on our show notes here, it sounds like your own AI-based trainer telling you where to focus based on what happens in your accounts, and he's not wrong. So compliments to them. They are not backing down on the face of Gong, continuing to get outrageous gobs of money, and they continue to innovate. Check them out, courseai.momentum. And we're going to go right now we're going to skip the water cooler talk today because we're tight on time. That's okay. You're not missing much. There really wasn't a lot going on. And we're going to go into Ollie's Rant. So Ollie, my friend, what is on your mind today?
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Ollie here with this week's Run on the Drive. I'm going to talk about some of the topics we've already covered on this week's show already. The money that Gong and Outreach and others have raised recently. Staggering amounts of money. It's just amazing. Can you imagine all that money coming into your bank account? You think, what the hell will I do with all of this? And obviously they have a plan, but I think we need to calm down a little tiny bit on how we react to these types of news feed type of events. When you see it, you think, wow, it's amazing. But it is quite often, because there's so many companies in this industry, it's quite popular as well when it happens. But also, let's just slow down a little bit. There is another way to do things. You don't have to go through multiple rounds of funding. You don't have to IPO. You don't have to exit within 5 years, 10 years, or 2 months, or whatever. Just because, X company raises a huge amount of money or the first round, it's not, oh my God, it's the best thing ever. Great. We appreciate the work that goes into it. It's hard. It's a good achievement to raise money. And if that's part of their plan, fantastic. But also, let's just bear in mind that if you're going to go down that route as the founder and you're going to raise 5, 6, 7 rounds, and it's going to be a huge company, what you may walk out at the end with could be very similar if you just sold early on for less rounds, less dilution. So I think we just need to bear that in mind a little bit more. But that could just be me with my pessimist hat on. What do you guys think?
All right, Catherine, you want to go first? You want me to go first on reactions? So I always love your reactions to Ollie's rants. Usually you give me that little look and you say, I'm not sure I agree. So why don't we let you go first? What do you think about Ollie's rant?
Hey, Daryl, that's the beauty of this show, is that we don't agree on almost anything. So that say out there, like, surround yourself by people that are not the yesers.
That's right.
They challenge your brain and they just allow you to see life in a different lens. So that's where we come into play. And yes, I guess as a Colombian, for my culture, it's a little bit hard to get the reason behind the rants that come from Ollie, just because it's a rant, right? And so in my culture, it's like, come on, stop it. Look for your solution, move forward, whatever it could be. So that's kind of my take, but I do want to hear your point though here, because it just ties back into what we were discussing earlier in the show.
It does. That's a good segue. I tend to agree with Ollie, but it's not and I'll explain why, but it's not, this is not a right or wrong statement. This is definitely a personal choice. So Ollie's rant basically is, listen, if you sell early before you get all this money, because you understand, folks, when you raise money, you get diluted. And to be clear, what that means is, I'll be real simple. Let's say you start off owning the company, you have 100% because you're the founder of the company. Then you bring in, $20 million and they take 20%, and now you're at 80. Then you raise another 50 million and you can go from 20% down to 60%. And so that's the process of being diluted. Ollie's rant is, why do these people get these astronomical sums of money, kind of like you're seeing Gong and Outreach do? Because when you get such large sums of money, your ownership stake gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, the point is, though, when you do this, your valuation goes through the roof. So like we talked about, $4.4 billion or $7.25 billion, that's your valuation. So even though you own less, you gain from the valuation being more. Therefore, if you liquidate your stock, whatever you might do, there's a certain point of money you walk away with. And his point is this: if you sell at 100% or 80% ownership at a smaller valuation, you're likely making comparable money if you're at a much bigger valuation and a much smaller percentage of ownership share. It all kind of balances out in the big picture. So what's the drive to get, see what I did there? The drive. What's the drive to get to, why do you stick around? And I think for many people, it's just the journey. Life is, what do they say? It's not the destination, it's the journey. It's the journey of doing it and figuring it out and riding the roller coaster. But I go back to my statement about Benioff, where I said I would have retired a long time ago. My bias is I would have been that guy early on saying, oh, I've got 50 million or 100 million in the bank. That's mine. I'm good. I'm set for life. I don't need $1 billion. I'm good. See you later. I'm going to go enjoy my time now. That's me. But I'm wired differently from Catherine, from others. So that's my take on it. I agree with Ollie. I'd sell early, take my money and say thank you very much. But for others, it's the journey. That's my take.
And that's it, right? Is the why. Why did they initially came up with that idea and went sweat and tears to make it work? What they wanted to do. Do they really wanted to have an impact in the world, or just make money, right? And there are many folks that start their journey by creating and selling early. Then they get a lot of, money to then create their actual passion. And they just don't let go because it's your thing, right? So it really depends on the why. It really depends on your connection to your idea and your business. If you are only focused on, again, collecting that money, right? For whatever it is. Oh, I your why, your goals, where you want to end, right? Like, I just want to buy a piece of island and go there and retire and worry about absolutely nothing, right? And in my case, have a pet elephant. So, hey, I'll just create, sell, and off you go. Figure out whatever you want to do with it, right? Obviously, keep in mind that it doesn't mean that you're not invested when you are creating. So you're just not really selling for the sake of selling, but it's because it's not your main goal. And then we have the long gamers that really just, it's their thing. It's their legacy, and they will stick to it until the end of it.
It's their legacy. By the way, total sidebar, Galen Girmay, we know her.
Lovely,
She's a phenomenal influencer, one of the co-founders of Rev Genius. I am on her podcast this week on her What's Your Legacy? Talk about being vulnerable, transparent, and totally exposed. Check it out, folks. Big shout out to Galen. Love her. She's amazing. I think it's one of the best podcasts out there. Not my episode. Clearly skip my episode, but the podcast itself, you want to get behind the people and understand, to Catherine's point, their why. What's their legacy? Check the podcast out. Catherine, we're out of time. So 2 weeks from now, I'll be back. And instead of doing a news edition like we do every single week, I propose we do a debrief of what I took away from the drive. What are your thoughts on that, Catherine? You up for it?
I have nothing to fear. I know no fear.
Nothing to fear. I love it. Okay, folks, that's Catherine Robles. If you haven't followed her on LinkedIn, you should do that. Join her on Thursday Night Sales. Hang out with her at all the various groups she likes to hang out with. She's a rock star. We love her here. In the meantime, I'm Daryl Prale, about to go to Atlanta, Georgia to attend the Outbound Conference. This, my friends, is another edition in the books of The Drive. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Enjoy your weekend.